My name is Mark Matt Miller. I'm 78 years old. I live in Cynthiana, a very small town in north central Kentucky. I first moved here in 1976 to take up teaching. I was a special ed teacher. I ended up running an alternative school. That's really all I know. I was in my 30s when I went back to school and when I came here. I bought this the first year I moved here in 1977, I think is when I bought the farm. I have a 90-acre farm here. It's a hill farm. This is not bluegrass central Kentucky farms. This is very poor, very hilly northern Kentucky hill farms.
What made you want to be a farm owner?
I was in the second grade. My mother was a social worker. And in southern Indiana, there was a family that they were going to Florida for 2 weeks, and somebody had to stay on the farm. So my mother volunteered my brother and my sister and I to go help, and we went out. We went there and lived. And so I fell in love with it. It's all I ever wanted to do was to own a farm.
What was it like for the first settlers in Kentucky?
When the people first settled here, it would have been around in the latter part of the 1700s. And he would find a place where there was a spring, so there was a water supply, a vein they called it some places. And he would start clearing out the trees to build a log home. The game started to phase out. There was no more game. It was harder to find. And at that time was about the same time that cigarette production started to prevail. Every single farmer here became dependent on raising a little tobacco. And it was a labor-intensive business. So you couldn't do it by yourself. Your neighbors had to help.
How did tobacco become a cash crop in Kentucky?
A man named George Walsh was raising tobacco. Then he ran out of seeds. They paddled across the river to Augusta and got some more tobacco seeds. And for whatever reason, those plants came up and they were white. Nobody to this day knows why or where they came from. And it became necessary for cigarettes. So we have this place where it's the only place you can grow it. You have to have it. And we have the barns here, and the farmers know how to grow it, and they have this neighboring concept.
Not only are you a farmer, but a writer as well. Could you talk a little about the books you've written so far?
Was an old-time English teacher and had retired, knew exactly everything there is to know about teaching English. And I said, I was thinking about writing a short story. She said, you have to. You owe it to your children. You owe it to everybody to do it. So I wrote some short story and sent her to her, and she said, it's beautiful. So I wrote another one, and another. And I ended up another friend of mine as a book publisher, and he helped me get it published. And that led to a second one. My third book is a serious biography of a man named Clarence Lebus who lived here, who was the only person in the history of American agriculture to successfully organize the American farmers. And that was the small tobacco farmers here versus James Duke and his monopoly.
What would you say to those who wonder why you choose to stay in a small town?
But this area here has become a home away from home, and there's no equal to it. My family here is the neighbors. And if I were to go out to the highway and start walking, I wouldn't make it 17 steps before somebody would stop and say, Mr. Matmore, where are you going? You need a ride. And that's the way it is. I attribute it to the necessity of neighbors helping neighbors to raise the tobacco, which was necessary for this community. And so I think it's made us into a really nice, close-knit place.